New Year's, an ICE agent killed a 43-year-old black man in front of his home. And you never really hear no coverage on it. You know, everything else is on what's on Minnesota and all that, and Renee Good. But you don't hear about this ICE agent who killed the 43-year-old black man. Democracy Now! They got the sister of the victim that happened to be killed by ICE agents. So we're gonna elaborate on what happened. I know her face look crazy right now. Her face look crazy. But on the real note, nobody's talking about this. And I also heard about another shooting that happened like the day after Renee Good was killed, but in Portland, Oregon, by the border. I heard about another killing by ICE agent, but nobody's talking about that. And that person was Hispanic. Like the uproars in Minnesota, but we ain't going to try to play the fiddle, you know. We see what's going on.
Are demanding justice for Keith Porter Jr., an African-American 43-year-old father of two who was fatally shot by an off-duty ICE agent on New Year's Eve. His family's urging transparency in the investigation into his killing. Porter's mother, Franciola Armstrong, spoke at a vigil this weekend.
From day one that he was born, I knew he was my joy. When he came around, people looked for him. He was a joy to be around. My son, the biggest heart, sympathetic, appreciative, so much gratitude.
On Keith Porter Jr.'s fatal shooting New Year's Eve, we're joined by two guests. In Compton, California, Janae Tyler is the cousin of Keith Porter Jr. She is the parent and family organizer for Students Deserve, and she's a Black Lives Matter Los Angeles member. And in Los Angeles, we're joined by Melina Abdullah, co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. She organizes globally with Black Lives Matter Grassroots, also a professor of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Melina Abdullah, let's begin with you. What do you understand happened on New Year's Eve when Porter was killed by an off-duty ICE officer with his ICE weapon?
Yes, thanks for covering this, Amy. It's really important to understand that as people are righteously and rightfully enraged and mourning the murder of Renee Good, that we also lift up Keith Porter Jr. Keith Porter Jr. was a 43-year-old black father of two girls. On New Year's Eve, he was celebrating at his own home, and like thousands around the country, we understand that he may have stepped outside of his home and fired a celebratory shot in the air, which meant
Doing hood rituals, huh? Let off a couple of air, right?
many people do, and which is widely acknowledged by city officials. His apartment complex is fairly large, and an ICE agent lived in that complex who went inside, put on his tactical gear, came back outside, and shot Keith Porter dead in front of his own home on New Year's Eve.
And Melina, the LAPD and the LA County District Attorney's Office has said they're investigating the incident. What do you know about their investigation? And of course, this could take quite a bit of time to resolve.
Yeah, what we know is nothing is happening, and the community has been told nothing. The family has been told nothing. There's not been a word uttered by the mayor of the city. Almost no elected official here has said anything.
Yeah, what's that fake-ass vice president that just had another kid? J.D. Vance, he said something about he got complete immunity, which is wrong. No federal agent has complete immunity. Have qualified, not complete. Awesome.
We know that we've been demanding the name of the ICE agent who killed Keith Porter. We've gotten nothing. We've demanded an arrest. An arrest has not been made. We've made demands of the district attorney that charges be filed. He basically said he doesn't intend to do anything. And so the community is going to have to mobilize. We've been mobilized since day one, but we're going to have to add increased pressure on our elected officials. We have an absolutely terrible chief of police, Jim McDonald, who was collaborating with ICE when he was sheriff of the county, who is refusing to really do anything to honor Keith Porter. Instead, early reports, when they were asked for comment, early reports hailed the gunman, hailed the killer as a quote-unquote hero, and called the victim, who is Keith Porter. Keith Porter is a victim, called him a suspect and an active shooter. And so it's disgusting, and we have several demands that we're making that the agent, the murderer.
That's what they said about Renee Good. They how? What?
Who killed Keith Porter be named, arrested, and charged, as well as they stop with the character assassination of this black father worker, loved by his community and the only child of his mother. And so we're creating the pressure, because ultimately it's going to be the community that steps up for Keith Porter.
I'd like to bring in Shanae Tyler into the conversation as well, the cousin of Keith Porter Jr. Our deepest condolences on your cousin's killing. Could you tell us a little bit about him and how your family learned of what happened?
Oh my goodness. First of all, I want to say thank you to you guys, and thank you to Dr. Molina, because she just centered everything that we're asking for as a family. Keith was an amazing human being. He was a girl dad. I keep saying that because the most important thing to him was his children and his family. He loved on everyone around him. He was always the life of the room, you know, not just a party, but in any room. You know, when he walked in, he brought joy. He always had a laugh, a joke, a smile. He was the one that uplifted others, you know, and unfortunately, he's been stolen from us.
And what information has your family received since the killing?
None whatsoever. We've not received any information in regards to whether there'll be a full investigation or not. Again, like Dr. Abdullah said, they've not named the suspect. They've not arrested the suspect. What we do know is that night procedure was not followed. You know, even after the ICE agent finally went ahead and called 911, I had to sit and watch video that was shared privately by a neighbor of them calling for him to surrender or shelter in place, which is an oxymoron. You can't do both. And as it stands, he was already presumably dead. There was no medical aid or emergency services on site that could have maybe saved his life.
Oh, that's the same thing as Renee Good. It's the same thing. He was no medical nothing. It wasn't shit for her. They dragged her out. You ain't supposed to do that. You ain't supposed to just drag her out, man.
And so we know that night Keith was celebrating. He was waiting for, you know, company to come. His girlfriend, the young lady that he's been dating for a long time now, the reason that he moved to the Valley, he moved out there for love, to be close to her. And, you know, he sent her for the food pickup that evening. And she got a call, when the place wasn't open where they decided their New Year's Eve meal was going to be from. She tried to call Keith, and when he didn't answer, she immediately returned home. And by the time, just that quick, that she had left and come back, unfortunately, he had already been stolen from us. He had already been murdered. And so what we do know is that everyone in that complex has said that they loved him, that he was, even amazing towards them. He had only been there for 11 months, and they knew everything about Keith, but they knew nothing about his murderer. What we know is that there was no sobriety check, a sobriety test given for this officer. We don't know what state of mind he was in. We don't know what he was in his home doing as he was celebrating New Year's Eve. He could have been on drugs. He could have been under, 5 bottles of vodka. We have no clarity in where this man's state of mind was. And what we do know is that with this mass call for ICE agents with no experience, the people who seem to have shown up to take these positions, a majority of them are people that now feel like they have a right to consider us not valuable enough for them to follow procedure. They're, these are...
That's always been on the table before this ICE immigration, before all this migration. You go back to the 1700s, go back to 1960s and all that, bro. This ain't nothing new for us, black people. This ain't nothing new for us. Nah, this is new to see. White people get shot in the face. That's new for them. But we knew that eventually that was going to happen to them. And it's more. I guarantee you, some ICE agents, they're going to make a mistake and kill a kid, and kill a white kid. And then somebody is going to shoot one of them ICE agents. They may not kill him because they got all that goddamn Kevlar. You got to, you got to do a headshot. If you want to kill him, you got to do a headshot. But they're going to get shot, and that's when he's trying to implement Insurrection Act, martial law, and all this bullshit.
People who have had G.I. Joe dreams, I call them, for a long time, and they're, conducting themselves as vigilantes, and it seems that they're causing more harm to American citizens. They stole Keith from us. Make no mistake, as far as the family is concerned, this man is a murderer. And we want justice for Keith.
Janae, our deepest condolences to you and your family. And Professor Abdullah, 2 quick questions as we wrap up. One, in Minnesota, the federal government is refusing to cooperate with the state and the city in investigating the death of Renee Good. And I'm wondering how it's playing out in California right now with the investigation of Mr. Porter's death. And also this connection between the Abolish ICE movement, around the country with that play on words, ICE out for good, referring to Renee Good, and the Black Lives Matter movement. Of course, she was killed just blocks from where George Floyd was killed 5 years ago.
Oh, word?
Professor Abdullah.
Oh, word? That block is hot.
Yeah, I think that when we talk about abolishing ICE, it's really, really important, and we're grateful to Keith's family for saying that this is systemic, that they stand with abolishing ICE. And we also have to remember that what we've seen in Minneapolis with at least local officials stepping up and being outraged by the murder of Renee Good, we have not seen in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles leadership, with the exception of City Council member Ionesis Hernandez, has not said any.
Gavin Newsom ain't saying nothing? Gavin Newsom ain't saying nothing? I figured so, because he's full of shit too, like J.D. Vance. I don't trust that white boy either.
Anything has not made any difference.
And he a Democrat. Just so you know. Just so you know, he a Democrat. Don't trust his ass either.
Demands of federal government around Keith Porter's murder, and we need to see that. We need to see leadership. So the conflict really that we see is the people versus ICE and the people versus the police, with very little support from local elected officials and local.
Somebody had a sign that said, "No one is illegal on stolen land." Nobody's illegal. Nobody's legal. Nobody's legal on stolen land. That makes correct sense.
except for that bald head, Elmer the Fudd looking Stephen Miller, who his family migrated here, but he say he is a citizen. Nigga, your family migrated here. Get out of here.
Government.
And that connection with the Black Lives Matter movement all over the country right now.
Absolutely. So from day one, as soon as Trump took office, Black Lives Matter grassroots put out a statement about ICE. When ICE invaded Los Angeles, we put out another statement. We said this is bad for black people, and we hate that it was shown to be true so clearly. In our statement, one of the things that we've said is never in the history of this country has more police been good for black people. And we said, we foretold the murder of Keith Porter, that when you have ICE agents who are police on steroids, living in community, plaguing community, claiming, our community is under siege, black people are going to catch the brunt of it, and that's what's happening with Keith Porter. One, if there's a silver lining, it's the solidarity. And so we're really, really grateful that black community and brown community, as well as visionary and progressive and courageous white allies and allies of color have stepped up. And we've all said ICE out of LA and ICE out of everywhere, as well as an end to policing that steals the lives of our people.